Okay. Good morning and welcome to Trialogue's monthly webinar. Today we're dealing with first work experience, breaking the no experience barrier. Thank you very much for joining us. Both our first time delegates joining us for the first time, and those who've joined us who've joined us before. If you have joined us before, you'll notice that we're on a different platform. But if you've joined us from our conference, you'll see that it's the same platform we've used for the conference over the last 2 years. So thank you very much for joining us. We hope to make it a richer experience, a richer discussion, and also greater input from you, our delegates and our audience who always join, and we know they always, makes for a rich discussion. I'm Sheldon Morias. I'm Thought Leadership Manager at Trialogue, and I'm really grateful that you've made the time to join us this morning. I know in and amongst our busy work lives, and thank you as well to our panelists who I'll introduce in a moment for joining us and giving us their learnings, their experiences, their insights on how we can help South Africa's youth, with it being Youth Month. I think it's even in greater focus, help South Africa's youth break out of unemployment. We all know these really high unemployment numbers, which are truly a crisis. We saw the latest quarterly labor stats come out in May last month, and the numbers are truly horrific. But there is a lot of good work being done. We're looking at how can we scale it, how can we get more young people into the world of work, doing quality work as well, because the implications are just so great, moving us out of inequality, moving us out of poverty as well. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. I'll take you through the agenda for our discussion as we go through. There we go. So I will take us through an introduction just to contextualize the topic and tell you a bit more about Trialogue as well. And then I'll introduce our panelists. As you can see on the screen there, I'm going to make a slight adjustment to our running order of the opening statements, with it being Youth Month there, giving the youth the first word and the last word as well as we close out today. We'll then obviously move into the moderated Q&A section where we'll have open up the discussion between myself and the panelists, and you, our delegates as well, taking your questions and your comments to the panelists as well, and having a rich discussion for you to share your insights as well, not just your questions, because often you're doing some of the great work that we're hoping to spotlight as well. Just on the logistics, just a reminder, if you are new to the platform, you should see two columns, one titled chat and the other one titled Q&A. I will draw questions from the Q&A. So please, any questions you have for the panelists, please put them in the Q&A section, so that's where I will draw questions from. We want to hear your voice. And then if you want to chat in and amongst yourselves as delegates, often there is rich discussion that comes through from people giving others advice or little bits of information, nuggets of information as well. So you can do all of that in the chat. We will also run polls throughout the webinar where we want to have your say as well. It gives us an indication on what some of your thoughts are, and allows us to shape the conversation in that regard. And then we'll close off the webinar with closing comments on that one. Before I take you through the rest of the introduction specific to the conversation, I just want to play a short video on the Trialogue Knowledge Hub, which is our knowledge repository. It's free, it's open, with dealing with the various aspects of CSI, responsible business, development sector topics, which many of you work in, as well as sustainability as well. It's also where the write-up of the webinar will be posted with the full video for you to share if any of you join late, or if you want to go over it again or share with any of your audiences, your colleagues, your networks as well. That's where it will be posted.
I'd like to introduce you to the Trialogue Knowledge Hub, the leading information resource for social investors in Africa. The Knowledge Hub builds on Trialogue's deep knowledge and research-based strategy, which underpins the more established Business in Society Handbook and Conference. It's a unique repository of specialist information available for free to companies, non-profit organizations, governments, and scholars of African corporate social investment and responsible business. Since its launch in 2017, it has grown its coverage on a range of responsible business topics, including collaboration and shared value, showcasing the latest research, case studies, and insights. The Knowledge Hub offers a number of features, including articles, case studies, and expert opinions, offering valuable and in-depth information, development sector sections that demonstrate how and why to invest, with case studies and examples backed up by research. An Industry Leaders tab profiling companies and showcasing their CSI and responsible business objectives and initiatives, along with their news, insights, and case studies. A section featuring resources, guidance, and tips specifically for non-profit organizations. An NPO directory, which features an accessible and easy-to-use list of South African NPOs. A function to search by development sector or responsible business topic, together with a search tool making it simpler to find what you need. Visit the Knowledge Hub today and become a stronger social impact leader.
Thank you very much. So let's turn our attention to youth unemployment, right? I mean, that's the South African context. As I said, I mean, we all by now know the numbers that are truly, truly scary, you know, specifically for the cohort 15 to 24, you know. But when we look at the broader young cohort of 15 to 34, you know, they make up roughly half of South Africa's working population, you know, so that translates to about 20.9 million individuals, according to the Stats SA Quarterly Labor Survey. I mean, that could be a huge potential, you know. It's a young workforce, you know, innovative workforce, which we could be leveraging off from, instead of having many of them unemployed, you know, living in poverty, and obviously, you know, high levels of inequality as well. You know, as we see over the last decade, you know, the unemployment rate for youth aged, you know, between 15 to 34 shooting up from almost 10 percentage points over the last 10 years to where we currently stand at 46% in the first quarter of this year. Now, if we look at it, and we know, you know, youth unemployment doesn't happen in a vacuum. We know that by and large, the populations that are disproportionately affected are Black youth, female, women, Black youth as well, are even harder hit if you look at the statistics as well. And this feeds into other contextual problems that we face as South Africa. You know, there's GBV, there's the inability to break out of cycles of violence as well. So it all plays into each other on that front as well. And then research has found direct links between, you know, youth unemployment and greater levels of gender-based violence there. And you can see from some of these graphs here, it just gives you an indication of the extent of the problem as it's developed over the last quarter. But we can also see from the type of jobs that the youth who are getting jobs are getting, what type of industries they're going into as well. And can we possibly have a look and change that? And then, you know, as I said, there is a lot of good work that's being done. We're going to hear from Sipesihle Manana, our own technical administrator at Trialogue, about some of the initiatives and the young people who are finding work, not only just from the training perspective and the skills development perspective, but also, transitioning into the world of work. So there are a number of initiatives that are working, are out there. But how do we, I think the extent of the problem means that we've got to ask ourselves, how do we scale our efforts? And I think it's important for us just to note, and I'd like to see this with you as we open up the conversation, is that this is not just about CSI. If we're talking about work placement, internships, training and development, first work experiences, this is about business, the entire business sphere and the sphere of influence. It means pulling in HR. It means, your business strategy at an organizational level, saying, what does it also benefit the business as well? Because it's not just a one directional saying, well, we're helping the youth. You'll find that companies and businesses become stronger as well. So it's not just a CSI problem as such. This is one in which the business has to think holistically about skills development, about absorbing trained youth, and helping them give their, their leg up. Get the leg up. So I think that's how we've got to view the conversation today and how we've got to view our efforts going forward as well. So if we look at some of the initiatives, as we know, from this, a lot of the initiatives sit within the presidency from a government perspective. You've got the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, part of the Presidential Employment Stimulus strategy. You've got the Basic Education Employment Initiative, which was looking to employ 200,000 young people at schools across the country to get that going as well, giving them critical skills on that front as well. As mentioned, the BEEI initiative, which we've got there as well. We've got the Employment Services of South Africa, and there's more details on this. We'll include all of this in the write-up as well. So if you haven't come across any of these before, learning about them, how you can get involved, how your company can get involved in some of these initiatives as well. And we'll hear from Sanlam in today's instance, but there are numerous examples of companies getting involved, both with the state-led initiatives, but as well as some in the private sector as well. You've got the Jobs Boost Outcomes Fund, a different initiative, launched in 2023. This is focusing on the outcomes, jobs outcome, saying there are enough skills development, training development happening. How do we then ensure that those youth are transitioned into working experiences as well? So now I'd like to introduce our panelists and turn over to them for their opening commentary. We've got Nodiri Metlo-Makulu. She's the Group Transformation Business Partner at Sanlam. We've also got Thabo Moloi, the Head of Business Development at the Youth Employment Service, which I mentioned on the previous slide. We've got Andrew Levy, the co-founder and the Chief Innovation Officer of Umuzi, a great organization doing great work, training youth, especially in the tech-focused sector, but also getting them placed and really having built a successful model there. And then we've got Sipesihle Manana, our technical administrator and technological whiz at Trialogue, who has benefited from some of the programs out there, and she'll speak more to that then. Certainly, our technology at Trialogue certainly wouldn't happen without Sipe's involvement and innovation and problem-solving skills there. So we'll hear from her, and it's great to see examples out there. And it's important, that we hear from youth, from beneficiaries as well. A lot of you from many of our platforms, whether it be in the conference or feedback on our webinars, we have the question around, getting more voices from beneficiaries across sectors, not just the youth, across the various different sectors that we work in there. So just a thank you for joining us again this morning, taking time out of your day. You can read more about human rights, social justice, many other topics, youth unemployment and employment as well on the Trialogue Knowledge Hub. For NPOs, you can improve your visibility through inclusion on the NPO directory. We've also got the Trialogue Business and Society Handbook, which we have coming up. And if you haven't seen any of that, either for our company research or the NPO research as well, please do have a look at that, and also involvement in that handbook as well. Please do reach out to us on that regard. I'm going to launch the first poll for us today to get a sense, before I turn to our speakers, on what's who we have in the room with us today, our virtual room as such. So the first poll I'm going to launch is, what type of organization do you represent? I'll give that some time for you to vote, so we can get a sense of who's in the room today. Okay. We've got those coming through. Great to see you also. Great to see you also on the chat. Thank you very much for all of you who have joined us. Thank you for also letting us know where you're from. A great range of organizations in the room today, so that's really great, and thank you very much for joining us. Remember, if you've just joined us late, you can use the Q&A function for your questions, or you can just ask a question down in the chat function. I will then be able to pick it up, but you can also use the chat functionality to connect with each other, or if you just want to drop some comments in about the conversation as it goes. Let me share those results so that you can see those. Great. 55% of you from non-profit organizations. Great to see big and small business, government as well, consultants. That's great to see. 89 votes. That's great. I will share that, and that just helps us craft our conversation as well. So let me turn over now to our first panelist. And as I said, I've just tweaked the running order slightly in honor of Youth Month. I think it's important to contextualize the conversation as well by hearing from someone who is still very much a youth, something I can't say, but more importantly, a beneficiary of a work experience program, a training and skills development program. Sipesihle Manana, she's the technical administrator at Trialogue. She loves working behind the scenes, but I'm going to ask her to turn her camera on for me now. Sipe, please describe your journey from school to We Think Code was the organization you worked with, and then to your internship and employment. What were some of the challenges you experienced, and how were these addressed?
Thank you, Sheldon, for that. And I'm very honored to actually be part of this webinar where it addresses these important issues relating to job unemployment. So for me, my journey, it started after me matriculating in 2014. You always have a heart to go to university, and unfortunately, I never had that opportunity to do so. I couldn't get into the programs that I had applied for. And then in 2015, I decided to just take a gap year, reassess. And then from there, I enrolled again for varsity, and I actually got accepted for my second choice of study, which was safety management. But my first choice was actually IT, but I couldn't get in for IT. I then selected for safety management. And then from there, I tried while I was studying part time. I actually also tried looking for employment, which wasn't easy because of it was a very competitive spaces, and yeah, I couldn't get in. So also during that period of my studying, I came across Within Code. So I tried applying for Within Code in 2016, and I didn't get in, and I tried again the following year. And then I think the only time I didn't try was 2018. And then in 2019, when I completed my diploma with UNISA, I then got a call that very same year in 2019. I got a call from Harambe. They called me to actually come in for an assessment. And little did I know the same assessment was the Within Code assessment. And so after I went there, I actually passed that. I actually passed the assessment, luckily, and then Within Code invited me for another assessment in their campuses, and then I went there, and then I passed the assessment, and then from there I got accepted for that 3 weeks boot camp. That was in 2020. I did that boot camp. That was January before COVID. I did that assessment, and then came March. Then there was COVID. We couldn't enroll. We couldn't do the program, and then it was moved to August. And then from there, we started the program, and then it was 8 months intense work, like project-based work at school, and then 4 months internship. And then for my internship, Within Code actually placed me at Trialogue. So I did my 4 months internship at Trialogue, and then went back to school for my 8 months. And then I guess Trialogue actually saw potential in me. And then I came back for my second internship in Trialogue. And then I graduated Within Code in 2022 in August. And then Trialogue actually gave me a permanent job in 22 as well. And then, that transition from being a student to an employee was deeply rewarding. It taught me how to be resilient and stay, and it actually paid off being resilient. Thank you, Sheldon.
Thank you very much, Sipen. You used a really interesting word, resilience there, and I think it's such a beneficial skill that one learns. I think it really can be learned there. So thank you very much for that, Sipen. We'll come back to you in the conversation as well. I think those are really key insights, and I think your journey is so reflective of what many others may find. In terms of not finding the traditional route open to them for whatever reason there. So we see the value in programs like that. I'm now going to turn to Nodiri Metlo-Makulu. She's the Group Transformation Business Partner at Sanlam. Now, Nodiri, how does Sanlam support youth training and employment to help young people gain work experience?
Morning, Sheldon. Morning, everyone. It's an honor to be part of this panel and to join such a meaningful conversation about the role companies do and should be doing in supporting youth development and employment. From a Sanlam perspective, I think with a high unemployment rate, corporates need to rally together to find initiatives that alleviate youth unemployment. I believe companies play a crucial role in bridging the gap between education and employment. So from our side at Sanlam, through our human capital areas across Sanlam Group, Sanlam offers internships, learnerships, and graduate programs to young people. And these internships and programs, they provide work experience and a first professional reference for the youth, and the opportunities create impact that is long lasting for the young person. We at Sanlam also offer mentorship and coaching programs for internal staff. As we know that a lot of young people, especially those that are from disadvantaged backgrounds, they may lack professional role models. So by offering mentorship and coaching within the company, it helps build confidence and also transference of soft skills. And also it helps with workplace etiquette. So those are small things that a young person starting a job doesn't really think about, but which really is important. And from our side, from a transformational perspective, we run programs that are targeted for youth development. We run a youth for tourism program where we upskill young youth in terms of gig skilling, and also we've got this Y4B initiative where we are still developing and supporting youth entrepreneurs. So Sanlam believes that creating pathways, whether through internships, mentorships, or youth development, or even entry-level roles, it's not just young people giving them a job, but also it's giving them a foundation. And with supporting the youth, it's as much as we do CSI, but it's just not charity, but it's also an investment in our communities. So that is what we at Sanlam are doing, Sheldon, at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Nodidi. I think it's really, I think you make a really good point there around what corporates should be doing. This is not just someone else's problem. It really is a South African, it's a societal problem because it has such a big impact on so many strands on the well-being of our society. So thank you very much for that, Nodidi. And I want to turn to Thabo Molloy, the Head of Business Development at the Youth Employment Service. Thabo, Sanlam obviously works with you on one of the programs, which we'll hear more about, but you work with a lot of other organizations as well. That's your intention. What is the strategic focus and objectives of YES, as the acronym is known, and how do you work with companies and NPOs to achieve those objectives?
Sheldon, thank you so much for having me, and good day to all the participants of this webinar. It truly is an honor. Youth unemployment is the most important problem we need to solve as a country. And as a youth employment service, we're a public-private partnership that exists solely to try and solve for this problem. However, this is not a problem that cannot be that can be solved in isolation. It's a problem that requires partnerships, and we see ourselves as the conduit to connect a business and connect government in a way that tries to alleviate this problem. Studies show that youth that has experience is more likely, 7 times more likely to be employed. But the challenge is, how do you get a job if you don't have experience? And how do you get experience if you don't get a job? And so we are not only a nonprofit company, but we're also an incentive where companies who register for YES programs can get up to 2 level up on their BBBE scorecard. And essentially, the programs are to give youth quality work experience where they're employed full-time on a fixed-term contract for 12 months. And in those 12 months, we monitor and evaluate the program to ensure that the youth is getting paid at least a minimum wage, that the youth is getting all the upskilling and experience that they need, not only to make the most of the opportunity in front of them, but also to be employable post the program. And essentially, we work with business who are the employers by incentivizing these organizations to create space for youth to get their jobs. And businesses can sponsor the placement of youth within their own organization, or they can sponsor youth to be placed via our implementation partners, where we've identified strategic sectors that are future facing, where we are able to place the youth on their behalf. So that's who we are in a nutshell, an organization that is a non-profit public-private partnership that exists to try and give the most deserving unemployed youth quality work experience so that they can be more employable and participate a lot more meaningfully in this beautiful economy.
Thank you very much, Thabo. And I think you touch on such an important point that we need to keep in mind. If we're going to have sustainable improvement across, all a number of indicators, whether it be economic, whether it be social indicators as well, is quality work. Quality work, and I think the importance of that as well on a number of levels, psychological, emotional, is important as well. Thanks for that, Thabo. I'm now going to turn to Andrew Levy, the co-founder and chief innovation officer of Umuzi. Andrew, Umuzi does a lot of great work in the space from a different aspect. We've heard from, a company, we've heard from a public-private partnership, sort of, quasi government organization as well. But you're coming from a different aspect. How does Umuzi work to help young people build high-value careers and help corporates, find talented youth who obviously add to their workforce?
Sheldon, hello, good morning to you. Thank you so much for having me. Sheldon and I know each other from when we used to both have a lot more hair, which is really, really exciting. I think I'm doing a little better than he is in this department, but thank you, Sheldon, for having me. And good morning to everyone on this call. Umuzi has big dreams and big aspirations. We're trying to decrease inequality by building high-value learning to earning pathways to enable youth potential by getting them into high-value earning opportunities. We do this in digital skills, we do this in the green economy, and we are excited to be starting to look into the world of agri and agriculture as well. So that is Umuzi in a nutshell. There's lots of jargon there, but basically what we're trying to do is we're a community that believes that we need to build a better society, and we can only do that if we include young people who are effectively being left out at the moment. Sheldon, the reason I spoke to you and your hair is because one of the biggest things that Umuzi is trying to solve is we're trying to build a new generation of social capital. Social capital is something that in South Africa specifically, there is a massive divide, and that divide continues to get greater and bigger as we go on. We are well over the 31 years of democracy, and while we saw political freedom, the economic freedom the dial hasn't really shifted on that. And so the haves continue to have, and they have a small knit of closed circle people that they continue to support, and that is really their social capital. And the have-nots have a very, very difficult social safety net. And, Sipasihle, thank you so much for being so vulnerable on this call. Your words earlier really struck me as words of the South African young people and youth. They are not unique. It took Sipasihle 5 years to enable her potential. How brilliant is this person on this call? And it took her 5 years just to start on a journey. And if you think about the societal cost that creates on South Africa, when a young person who's absolutely awesome, who's driven, who wants to get moving, takes 5 years to actually get onto a journey of enablement, well, that's hundreds and hundreds of millions of rands wasted. I think, Sheldon, the last thing I want to say is that we really think that Umuzi is trying to solve a few different things. One is the skills market is very, very saturated at this moment in time. It's obviously shifting and changing with AI, and that's the big elephant in the room. But big enterprise corporates, when they put a job out, they get thousands of applications. How do they know which application is right? So Umuzi is trying to change what we call the signalers of success, so that an enterprise corporate or an SMME doesn't have to waste time. They know that if a young person comes from Umuzi, it means something. And they know that if a young person comes from Umuzi and has done a data science program, then it means a certain thing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we always want to be demand-led. I think the truth of the matter is in South Africa, we've been asking enterprise corporates to carry the country for far too long. And the result of that, again, I want to have honest conversations with you today. The results of that is I think that a lot of enterprise corporates are desensitized to the youth unemployment problem. They see it as a tax rather than an investment, and they can say what they want, but that is really the truth. And I don't blame them. So we have to really make sure that we can show these enterprise corporates what young people can do and not just expect them to continue to pay away a tax in order to support and share youth unemployment. The second thing, which I think is really, really important, just tell me if I've got too little time, Sheldon. The second thing that I think is really, really important is that we talk about skills versus experience. Young people are going out into the market trying to get as many skills as possible. Sadly, corporates, because of AI and because of their changing needs, aren't actually interested in skills, they're interested in experience. So Umuzi has launched what's called the Experience Lab in conjunction with the IDC and the NPMN. I had to get that acronym right, I have to remember that. In which we effectively are a last mile accelerator for young people who've got the skills but need to get the experience in order to apply for jobs at enterprise corporates. And the way we're doing that is we're using the SMME market and the informal economy, which is completely not looked at in many forums like this. The informal economy is buzzing. If youth unemployment is at 65%, this is the busiest youth unemployment I've ever seen in my life. They're not waiting around for HR to call them. They are hustling. They are working. Would they love to be in a big enterprise corporate, having a big job and a nice car? Of course. But they're not waiting around for that. The expectations are low on this. So they are going out and being entrepreneurs in themselves. The Experience Labs effectively is trying to support them to grow their businesses by giving them digital products that can help them, and at the same time, giving young people the opportunity to get experience so that they can get not only skills on their resume, but worthwhile experience markers as well. And the last thing I'll say just very quickly is that I think we have to be really, really careful about chasing statistics and definitions. So what do I mean by this? It's really easy for big enterprise corporates to say, we have done X, so many thousands of rands have been spent, so many thousands of young people have been touched. But really, I think what we need to come to is a bit of an honesty moment where we look in the mirror and say, what is that impact? How much money are we spending for that impact? And is that impact actually changing any lives? I think that too often we're very, very interested in just making sure that we've got statistics that we can put up that look grand. But actually, when we look at what's happening on the ground in that young person and their experience, nothing is effectively changing for them. So I think more honest conversations need to happen in forums like this in order for us to actually have outcomes that are worthwhile. Okay, Sheldon, I've thrown so much out there. I'll pause and breathe and hand it back to you.
No, thanks for that, Andrew. And I think you touched on a number of points. As I'd mentioned, Thabo spoke about quality work. You speak about high value learning opportunities, but also high value work as well. And your last point about impact, for those of you who may not have joined us for our Business and Society conference, which happened last month, the theme was largely around impact, driving impact, inspiring change. And a lot of the work we do at Trialogue is around impact. How do you measure it? How do you monitor it? How do you frame it? Is it just the outcomes? Is it the lives that are being changed as a result of one person getting a job? Often you have impact beyond what we're looking at, in terms of an outcome, and then contextualizing that impact in terms of the scale of the problem. So the numbers may look great per organization, but when you're facing a problem at the scale that we do in South Africa, you've got to say, okay, well, is this while it is good work, is it just not enough? to make meaningful change there. So I'm going to share the second poll with you now. Thank you for those for continuing to vote in our first one there. It really gives us a good indication on the people in the virtual room. So the second one is, and these are all single choice. So yes, there may be more than one thing that we need to do to obviously address youth unemployment, but what is the one thing you think, so it gives us an indication as a starting point for the conversation. What do you believe is the most significant barrier preventing young South Africans from accessing their first work experience? Okay. So I've just posted the second poll there. If you need to, just scroll up on your polls feed and you'll be able to see it there. I'll give it some time. Thank you very much for all the comments in the chat. I really see them coming through, really appreciate them. Those questions that have come through as well already, I note those. Tuso, thank you very much. I've got a very similar question as well, just generally to our panelists. Around access to some of these programs as well, knowing the geographical landscape of our country on that front as well. So I certainly will get to those questions there. Just keep them coming so that we add it to the conversation as well. I'd really love to hear your voice from that. Let me start showing the results. You can still continue voting there, but it gives us an indicator on what you're thinking. So let me repeat that question. What do you believe is the most significant barrier preventing young South Africans from accessing their first work experience? Okay, by and large, you're saying the no experience catch-22. I think Thabo referred to that. Need experience to get a job, but need a job to get experience on that front as well. We also see lack of sufficient jobs and opportunities that coming through there as well. I think that points to a number of things. One being an economy that isn't growing fast enough, which means jobs aren't being created fast enough, and in some instances jobs are closing down or being cut as well there. So lack of sufficient jobs and opportunities. I think opportunity a big one. Then we've got lack of relevant skills and qualifications at 14%. Thank you. We've got one question as well coming through. We've got employer attitudes and hiring practices. I think Andrew spoke to that somewhat in his introduction as well. Geographic location and transport challenges. As we know, we're all, at least from a speaker panelist point of view, we're sitting in major cities. It's easier to get around. It's often easier to access job opportunities, going in for interviews and the like. But what happens if you're out in a province that's more rural? If you're in the Northwest or if you're in the Eastern Cape, which according to the latest statistics had both the highest unemployment rate, right? And they had the lowest employment rate, right? So, I mean, those two speak to each other. They don't always go hand in hand, but it does speak to the significance of the problem, So geographic location, I think, is something which is important. Employer attitudes and hirings there. Okay, that one we should count as 7%. Thank you to the Eagle Eye, Meryl Bartlett there from Community Keepers. But I think it speaks to the point on that front as well. So thank you for voting. Let's turn our attention now to the discussion part of the conversation. And I'd like to ask my panelists to please turn on their cameras and their mics as we open up the conversation on that regard there. Ndidi, let me turn to you and start, just in terms of building on your introduction there. So how does Sanlam, if we, for any other corporate on the call listening, looking to get, some insights and learnings, how does Sanlam collaborate with educational institutions, NPOs, government initiatives, as I mentioned, yes, to create a pipeline of work-ready youth?
Thanks, Sheldon. I think building a strong pipeline of work-ready youth and youth entrepreneurs, because it's not just youth that we want to be employed, but we also want youth to be their own. They own their own businesses and be entrepreneurs. We want youth to have an entrepreneurial mind. This all requires close collaboration with educational institutions, with NPOs, and also government initiatives through strategic partnerships. I think we've got a partnership that we have with YES, which really has helped some of the youth that we're supporting. But all this starts with bridging the skills gap and enhancing employability. So Sanlam partners with government, also government institutions through our foundation, and also educational institutions in providing bursaries for critical skills identified through our SETA. We work with our SETAs as well. We've also noted that there's the issue of access. And I've seen firsthand how access to early career opportunities can completely change the course of a young person's life. And yet, so many young people are still struggling to get that crucial first foot in the door, not because they lack talent or motivation, but because they lack access, exposure, and support. I think those have been mentioned in the chats that you've just gone through, Sheldon. And also that's where companies come in. So Sanlam provides, apart from the internships opportunities and mentorship opportunities that play an important role in preparing graduates, Sanlam also provides, we proactively partnered with YES, the Youth Employment Service, and we provided training that upskilled youth in gig skills, like content creation, photography and videography, and also web design. So that has helped some of the youth to go through being unemployed, sitting at home, and joining in the workforce in terms of internships or that internship. From there, we've then graduated them to being their own entrepreneurs, because we know that we take youth through internships. They can't just all get jobs through the internships. They won't all be absorbed. But if we create entrepreneurs, they then in turn will create job for others. So that's the flagship program that we from a transformation perspective has started with the youth employment service, and all these initiatives are effective tools for providing pipeline of work ready youth and also entrepreneurs. And like I've mentioned, we need to create those opportunities for the youth. So for me, in essence, it's about creating a collaborative ecosystem where education meets industry needs and empowering youth with both skills and opportunities to thrive in the workplace. Ultimately, a collaborative model. That's what we need. We need a collaborative model that fosters an ecosystem where students transition more effectively from education to employment, while companies benefit from a more prepared, diverse, and future-ready talent pool. I think that is what we can do in terms of creating that strong talent pool and pipeline of work-ready youth, and also youth that have an entrepreneurial mindset. Thanks, Sheldon.
Thank you so much on that, Nodidi. Thabo, turning to you, and I mean, we've seen it come through from the poll. You had mentioned it, and I think they're kind of intertwined, the work experience aspect, but also the opportunities. I think those go hand in hand. From your perspective as YES, what are some of the challenges you face, in terms of convincing businesses to participate in YES, and how have you refined that value proposition over time? I mean, it's been 7 years of YES. You speak about incentives as well, but what are some of those challenges, and how do you go about approaching them?
100%. That's a very, very good question. We are a triple BE incentive, and one of the big challenges is working with organizations that are already a level 1 organization. So, if you are if your main incentive is to improve levels and a company is already a level 1, how do you convince them that, you know, youth employment is still something important that they should invest in, especially when it comes to programs like the Youth Employment Service? And how we've approached this is to really bolster our value proposition beyond triple BE. And we have worked very closely with business to understand what are their strategic business imperatives that intersect with employment, especially youth employment, that we can work together to co-create programs that not only make sense for the youth, but actually make business sense for the organizations we work with. So one of the things that we've worked on is identifying businesses who have 50 or more employers, where the new employment equity legislation that has just recently been promulgated requires these organizations to have a 5-year employment equity plan. And we have then worked together with these organizations to integrate the YES program as part of their 5-year plan, for example. The other thing is a lot of the businesses are looking for investment, right? They're looking for capital to grow. And a lot of the institutional investors, the global institutional investors, are looking at companies from an ESG lens, from an environment, social, and governance lens. And companies can now utilize the YES program sort of as the S in ESG and showcase to these institutional investors the sustainability investment they're making that makes them a lot more attractive to these investors. You know, the other thing is, you know, YES is a 12-month program. And a lot of companies can utilize YES as a talent development pipeline. You know, we have clients now who absorb up to 80% of their youth because they've strategically utilized the YES program as that talent development pipeline. You know, the other thing is we work with multinational organizations who require skills transfer. And without the relevant visas, this could be a big challenge. And the Home Affairs has recently introduced what's known as the Trusted Employer Scheme. And companies can utilize the YES program to show that they're investing in skills development in order to qualify for this Trusted Employer Scheme that expedites visa applications and extends the length of these visas. So these are some of the value propositions. But I think for me, the main thing is a lot of companies are having their own programs that aren't verified. And we want to be that verifier. We want to be that independent organization that can verify and showcase the work that these organizations are doing. So we have a very strong monitoring and evaluation aspect to our offering, where all the youth that are signed on to be YES Youth get called at least once a month. And we actively track how these youth are progressing and how these youth are developing. Even post the program, we have strong alumni data. And this enables us to verify that organizations indeed are investing in these programs that are employing youth. And these programs are quality work experience that can be tracked and monitored. And together, collectively, we can work together to ensure that, you know, this makes sense for them, this makes sense for the youth, it makes sense for the government, it's independently verified, and it's sustainable. So those are some of the ways we are bolstering our value proposition beyond the triple BE value proposition.
Thabo, I want to stay with you, and you mentioned the monitoring and evaluation part, and Andrew, I'll come to you as well, because I think that you mentioned it. I see some of the questions coming through. Thank you very much, Debbie, on that one. So I think there are two parts to it, right? There's obviously monitoring and evaluation in terms of how many jobs are being created, because I think, you know, while it's very interesting that the statistics conversation we've been having as a country recently around unemployment, right? But I think there's various aspects to it. I think one is you need to be able to measure how many people are in work, what type of work they're doing, you know, because if you can't measure it, you don't know what you're dealing with. So I think there's a monitoring and evaluation aspect, which is, you know, outcomes. And then there's obviously impact, which I'll come to you, Andrew. But I think in terms of that, Thabo, how do we measure, how can we measure the value created by the work that young people are already doing, the experience they gain, so not just jobs, work, and if we take a skills lens to it, an experience, I think there's effectively measuring the impact that volunteers across the country make, and those host organizations. So from your perspective, how important is it in terms of that monitoring and evaluation to grow and give us a better picture of what's actually being done, not just in traditional definitions of what we may consider work?
100%. I think that's a very important question, because we need to have the right tools to measure the impact, to ensure that where we are investing, it makes investment sense. And where these programs are working, we can disproportionately invest even more to try and solve this unemployment crisis that we are facing. And what we've done is, even though we report into the presidency, even though we report into the DTIC, we are purely privately funded. So this enables us to have both a lobby in government, but also represents the private sector. So we are able to learn what works from a private sector perspective, what works from a government perspective, and how do we bring these two together to ensure that the impact that we are measuring, the numbers are real and it makes sense. And because of this, we've been able to grow our program. So we have about 1,900 sponsors like Sanlam, like market leading organizations who enable us to do the work that we do. And through these relationship with these corporate organizations, we've been able to give close to 190,000 quality work experience 12-month programs since inception. And what's important for us is ensuring that these youth get jobs so that they can get paid and participate in the economy. And through this, we've been able to deploy about 10 billion through salaries into the economy. And what's important for us is employability. So post our program, about 45% of the youth go on to participate in the economy. And an important statistic, which Notiti alluded to earlier, is this entrepreneurship piece, where about 17% of our youth go on to start their own business. And it's important for us to keep a track of these statistics and ensure that we have a repository of data to understand which area of these models work and how can we work together with government and private sector to invest in the spaces that can unlock a lot more opportunities for the youth. And being able to have a strong monitoring and evaluation aspects also enables us to co-create these programs in real time. So for example, with Sanlam, one of the things that we piloted is this Youth for Tourism sector development initiative. And through this program and through monitoring and evaluating which youth were able to get the right skills, where are the youth now placed, what worked with this program, we can now build these sector initiatives that we can then on-sell to other institutions and other organizations so that it creates this catalytic effect. And I think the last thing I want to say is, these programs must be catalytic. So for us, it's about giving the most deserving youth the best opportunity possible for them to participate meaningfully in the economy. And we're proud to say that about 40% of the YES alumni come from grant recipient households. 2 out of 3 of these youth have 2 or more dependents. So giving them a job that enables them to participate in the economy not only changes their life, but it changes the life of their community. And for us to be able to monitor and evaluate that enables us to justify back to the private sector why these investments make the sense that they do.
Andrew, coming to you, and obviously, since founding Umuzi, can you give us an indication of the number of young people who've gone through your program and have been placed? So I suppose from a statistical point, but then also to build on that with the qualitative. I mean, as you mentioned, Umuzi works with youngsters from often underprivileged backgrounds. They don't have the social capital of having gone to a private school or, having the means to access traditional university education. So you understand the lives that have come through and seen them. So from a quantitative perspective, how many youth have passed through the program? And then from a qualitative aspect, some of the lives you've seen changed, and the impact that first work has had on people's lives and the lives of their loved ones.
Well, thank you, Sheldon. I think Thabo has thrown out as many quantitative stats as this audience can handle for one day, so I'm going to leave that to him. I think our most important one is that we have 85% of young people in South Africa who've gone through a program who then retain a job continuously. So it's not just about that first 12 months, it's post that as well. And that's the secret of the social capital that I'm talking about. It's really important that corporates and NPOs and NGOs spend more time in the M&E post their programs than actually just as a reporting factor that they need for their end of year reports. The reason why that is, and here comes the qualitative thing, one of the things that I'm most proud of, and it's going to sound so small compared to the initiatives that are here today and being showcased, we have a WhatsApp group. It's called Job Opportunities. And effectively, alumni get put onto that WhatsApp group, and they share job opportunities from their corporates to other learners within our ecosystem. And I think it's one of my proudest moments because it's not a high-tech moment. We just set up a WhatsApp group. It used to be ticked over by Muzi. Muzi would find jobs and post them there for our alumni and for other young people. But now it is just alumni sharing jobs that they are getting from their corporates. And for me, that talks to the product that we're trying to create here. It's not only about getting young people economic opportunities. So we've moved away again from that word jobs, because I think jobs is going to die a very quick death with AI, and it's about economic opportunities. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that it showcases that value is really created in a shared environment. It's not about Umuzi having the value or the corporates having the value. It's about us together collectively being responsible for the change that we want to see. So I think this is what is really exciting for me. That WhatsApp group gets multiple shares a day of different posts that are in their corporates, and that really is the way. If you had to put another poll up as to how you got your first job or how you got this job, it's probably through someone recommending you or through word of mouth. And that's the truth. And so this power of community and network is so critical to any success that at a country level that we want to make, and as well as a programmatic level as well. We have a number of stories of young people who, like Sipasiple, have got all the drive in the world, but unfortunately couldn't afford tertiary education, or afforded it, but then realized, hey, I'm actually not that interested in this program, and sadly had to drop out, and then couldn't re-enter into another pathway. That is the story of South Africans. They don't have that capital. They don't have that safety net. And so we lose so much of this potential. And a lot of people have been speaking about regional differences as well. We see that a lot at Umuzi. A young person will travel to the big hubs, Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, PE, for their university or tertiary education. And then suddenly it gets taken away from them for financial reasons or for other reasons. And then they have to go back to the area that they came from. And again, it's an unbelievably excitable, high potential young person that just does not get any way access. So what Nodidi was saying earlier, the access is really important to these opportunities to then further enable their talent. I think it's one of the most amazing things, that one of the silver linings that came out of COVID, and then there are not many, I'll tell you that, there are not many, but one of them is we used to be completely in person. Umuzi had a studio in Jeppiestown in the heart of Johannesburg. We had a housing program, and within 2 weeks we had to close it all down and go online. And it was an incredibly difficult time for Umuzi. But what it did mean is that we had to completely shift our programs into a remote environment. And we now can service not only South Africa, but we service 32 countries across the world, and across Africa, apologies, a few more across the world. So it's been a really exciting thing that we can reach a young person who's sitting in Montfrere, who has some kind of data, who's able to get online and who wants to change their life, but just can't keep on traveling to the city hubs in order to do that. I hope that answers your question, Sheldon.
No, that's perfect. And I think you've segued into my next question, which I want to pull from the chat or the Q&A function. Nodidi, I'd mentioned the geographical nature of some of our problems. Some provinces harder hit than others because of where job opportunities find themselves and the like. So we've got Tuso Malinga asking, hi Nodidi, is Sanlam Youth Development Initiative, so are they initiatives accessible across the country? How do you ensure that your programs and your initiatives aren't just targeting young people or get access to young people in Joburg, Cape Town, Durban, the big centers? How do you take it across the country?
Thanks, Sheldon, and thanks for that question from the people that are online. Yes, I heard Andrew mentioning a person sitting in Mount Frey. And yes, with our development program especially the youth development program with that we partnered with YES and some of the other corporates that have joined. We have youth sitting all over. And true, the frustrations and the blockages and barriers that they have are different. You take a youth sitting in Joburg and a youth sitting in Matatiele. It's completely different challenges. The youth sitting in Matatiele have other challenges like infrastructure, for example. We've got a youth that is sitting in Matatiele. They manufacture coal. And they work in rural, in the forest. I myself went and we did a site visit and we went and saw where they are and how different and it really humbles you to see how when we help, say, we also reaching out to the rural areas, it really means a lot to the people sitting there and also making a difference to those that are in those areas. So yes, we do reach people in rural areas, and for us, it's really important that we reach the rurals. We have a Sandparks program that we have with that we partnered with Sandparks at Sanlam, and we've got a program where we help SMMEs, and also that one is also a rural SMME program. So we're really wanting to reach and touch youth SMMEs in the rural areas, because we know their frustrations are even more serious than even our youth that are sitting in cities. You think our youth sitting in cities are struggling? Wait till you go to the rural areas and you see the real struggle that youth are faced with. So we do try and reach nationally. We've got a wide footprint, and yeah.
Thank you for that, Nodidi. I think the corporate, the size and the heritage and the legacy of Sanlam. It's obviously great to hear that. Thabo had also mentioned as well in terms of reaching areas, and Andrew's point around the getting around infrastructure problems, transport challenges, and the like. So it's great to see that it is spreading across, not just in your big centers and those who happen to live close to where head offices and corporates are obviously based as well. I'm going to put up the third poll now for us before I get to Sipe Sitle on her aspect. And the question is, if you had to prioritize one intervention to help young people break the no experience barrier, which do you think would have the greatest impact there? So I'll put that up and leave it up for a bit. Thank you very much for your contributions to the chats, your questions. Please keep them coming through. Just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, just click on the green Ask a Question tab, and then you'll be able to pop your question in and fire it off to us. And then I will pick that up and I'll be able to share it with our panelists there. So thank you very much for that. as well. So let's see. Let me share the results of the poll as they start coming in. Okay, that's great. Alice, I see your contribution there. Thank you very much. I'll come to it. So if we're looking at the poll, and thank you, I see the votes are coming in, so that's great. If we look at what are your thoughts? Okay, 38% of you saying better career guidance and workplace preparation in schools and universities. We've also got hiring practices coming up there, hiring practices that focus on potential over experience. I think our speakers have touched on that as well, the growing importance of that. Mandatory internship or learnership quotas for companies above a certain size, so possibly using the power of legislation there. Institutions of higher learning be better aligned with employer needs. I think Andrew touched on that about being demand led as well, and also the changing world of work, which we know is happening at a rapid pace because of technology on that front there. Comprehensive mentorship and support programs. I think that's very important. Something that we shouldn't lose sight of, and it's something I took from my time, in my formative years of work. I remember, something as simple as, being able to go home and leave the office at whatever time you needed to, which meant I could work longer hours, probably get more work done than someone who was beholden to, transport challenges or taxis and the like. Being able to get home and, you've got a warm meal cooked for you, as opposed to, spending the whole day at home. You're from out of the province. You don't have much of a support structure in place here. So it's not just what happens in the workplace. I think that's very important there. Thank you for your votes. We'll have those continue to have those come through, and you can watch those there. Sipho, I want to turn to you now. In terms of, I suppose, lessons we can learn for you, how important was the internship from your perspective in terms of your career development?
Thank you, Sheldon. So for my career development, the internship was very important in part of my career journey. So it actually gave me a real taste of the working world. It was not just only the technical side of it. It actually gave me, the ability to actually work in a team, and also meet deadlines, and also be more professional. It actually also, it got me, to move from the theoretical part of, what I've been learning at school. But it made me, things started to click. I began to understand things that I've learned and actually applied it into my internship. And also in terms of connections as well, like getting into the workplace, you get to be connected, and then you also get to have to be valuable. So yeah, those are some of the things that actually were happening during my internship in my career development.
Sipho, to stay with that,
Yes.
and I suppose what corporates can learn, right? Being on the other end of an internship, right? What didn't work for you, or what could have worked better? Because I think those are important lessons to come out as well.
Okay, I think what worked for my side is the fact that I didn't have to go an extra mile to actually get a job. So other nonprofits might actually have to learn, like, to actually include and partner with companies and all that, and also what worked also is the fact that I got to learn, the soft skills. Like, on the program, I actually got to learn the soft skills part of it, while it actually in my internship it actually helped.
Okay. I think that's really important. I think the soft skills, the accessing of the opportunity, I think is one that is really important there. And I think each of the speakers have each spoken to the power of collaboration, right? So not just controlling your part of the value chain, but saying, well, we need to look at the journey holistically. Someone is getting training, they're getting skills development, hard skills, but then how do we help them after that? As well, because we know the stories of graduates who say, I've got a degree, sometimes even an honors, sometimes even a master's, but I'm struggling to find work. I'm struggling to find work. So I think that's an important aspect for us there. So thanks for that, Sipe. Tabo, I wanna ask, in terms of we've spoken about collaboration in terms of, okay, government, private, NPOs, various institutions as well. But on that one slide, I showed the various different initiatives. Now, as I'd mentioned, some of them and many of them, for instance, sit in the presidency. So there's some level of coordination. But in terms of skilling, in terms of learnings as well, what level of collaboration and coordination is there with other youth employment initiatives, both sort of ones coming out of government and then ones in the private space?
So there is collaboration, but we can definitely do better in collaborating even more. So I think, there is an ecosystem. So like you mentioned, there's the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. And we also sit on the PYEI along with other players who are trying to help address this unemployment crisis. So you have your NYDAs there, you have your Harambe, Collective X, and we try and work together. I think we sit on the demand side of that equation where we work with the private sector to try and place the right youth in the right spaces. However, there is a gap in terms of working closer to ensure that the skills coming through match what is being needed by jobs. And I think, we certainly now are understanding the power of data, and we're investing in real time to use things like AI to look at some of the youth alumni that we have in our database, keep a track of where they are, but also at the same time understand some of the gaps that exist in the marketplace. So where are the critical skills, where are the critical jobs that need more people that are struggling to find, and how do we then work together to make sure that the skills that are needed match the skills that are being provided for. And I think we as the Youth Employment Service welcome collaboration and participation. For us, anything that can help that unemployed youth get a job, anything that can help us do our job that much more better, we are open to learn from. And what we have done is we've also, because we work with all these multinational market-leading listed companies, NPO, NPC, what we're seeing is also the different programs, the different players in the ecosystem are putting together. And we are trying to then extrapolate learnings that different service providers can learn from. So, it's really exciting to hear about some of the work that Umuzi is doing, and something simple as a WhatsApp group, how catalytic that can be. be. And then it's about how do we then take those learnings to other institutions and other players where Umuzi might not be able to reach, but those insights can help them connect their impact to the most deserving youth that much more better. Similarly with, programs that we're building with organizations like Sanlam, it's about understanding, the other service providers that also work with Sanlam that we can also potentially partner with. So for us, it's about building relationships, but also looking for ways to connect those relationships to opportunities that can unlock more jobs for unemployed youth. So yes, the collaboration is there, but I'd also like to implore anyone watching this webinar who wants to play a part, who wants to get connected. The door is open because we are always trying to learn about what works. We are always trying to learn about how we can improve. And we are also trying to utilize our platform to be a voice in spaces that need these voices to be heard. So whether you're a young person who's unemployed, whether you're a young person like Spesihle who's gone through the journey, who's sharing these insights, I think the more we collaborate, the better. Yes, we are collaborating, but the challenge is how do we do more to ensure that the right people get given the right opportunities?
Okay. Tabo, let me stay with you for Alice's question. I think you may be best placed to possibly point Alice and others who share her question with in terms of pointing them in the right direction. Alice, as I'd mentioned, will include the information I had on that one slide. We'll include it in the write-up as well with links to those organizations, so that'll be handy. But Alice asks, aside from YES, are there other government departments or parastatals that corporates and NPOs should consider collaborating closely with in addressing youth empowerment and employment? And I think I like that, Alice, we haven't used that word enough, empowerment. We've heard from our panelists Nodidi and Tabo, that not even that, the youth who come through don't all stay within corporate jobs. Some obviously become entrepreneurs, and I think that's about empowering them with the necessary skills as well. But Tabo, back to Alice's question, are there other government departments that or parastatals that corporates and NPOs should be aware of and that they can work with, to push various aspects of youth empowerment?
100%. Obviously, selfishly, first prize is yes. So always come to yes first when it comes to youth employment. And like I said, there's the demand side, there's also the supply side, right? The youth have to have skills. They have to have the right skills. So we know that, in the Department of Education and the TVET space, when it comes to apprenticeship, there's a lot of work that needs to be done that needs the help of the private sector to help, drive these curriculum and help shape these curriculum in a way that makes sense for business. So I always implore, the private sector to work with the Department of Education, especially in the TVET space, to help craft curriculum that makes sense for their business needs. So they are not spending more money investing in their own education programs, even after a graduate has gone through a TVET, because the skill gap is just so wide. So that would be my main, point of reference. The other thing is, as much as we have, big business, who are the largest employer, the future of this economy also lies in small business. And small business need all the support that they can get. And we have a Department of Small Business and other agencies who work together to create a supply chain for these businesses to participate both in supplying government and supplying other institutions. So I'd also implore organizations to look within their own businesses, look within their own enterprise supply development programs, and look for opportunities to further work with the Department of Small Business to capacitate entrepreneurs to be able to grow and employ more people.
Tabo, thanks for that. Where's the time gone? we've almost come to the end of the webinar. I do want to ask one more question quickly of you, Andrew. I think you would possibly be best placed for this to answer Janice's question, which I think is a really important one as well. If you're looking at if you're a young person and you're looking at going through any of the programs, obviously you're speaking from Umuzi's side. Are we talking about what is the minimum requirement they should have? Is it a matric certificate? Is there some sort of other qualification that they need before coming to Umuzi?
Yes, I think it's a good question, Sheldon. I thought you were going to ask a different one there, and I'll try and answer both because I think they're important. The first one is to say young people that come through the Umuzi programs, for the digital skills, definitely need to have a matric as a minimum standard and need to be South African. In our green pathways that we're busy building out now, that's actually not the case. So we're very excited about that because I think what happens, and everyone got very, very excited about digital, poured millions and millions of rands into digital, and then realized digital jobs are disappearing because of AI. And so we need to look at other avenues because there are young people that aren't digitally focused. I mean, I'm not digitally focused, and I would have been left out of this huge wave of digital focus. So I think that it's very exciting for us in the green, agri, and tourism spaces that we're in. You do not need a matric, which is really, really exciting. In the digital, yes, you do. I think, Sheldon, I was going to answer a different question, which was, how do young people find out about all these things? Because it's about the exposure and access, which is really important. And, one of the things that we always say, it's so funny to, I think a lot of people say, yeah, put it on your website or advertise it. But I think the thing that we've seen works the best is meet young people where they are. So all you need to do is do a cursory look on YouTube, TikTok for We Think Code, Umuzi, Yes programs, and you will see what young people are saying about you. And sometimes that feedback is hard to hear, but it's brilliant. Young people, influencers. We had a young influencer named Rose. She did a TikTok about how difficult it was to get into Umuzi and that it was her third time applying. She thankfully got in, and we then utilized her amazing skills as a TikToker because Umuzi knows nothing about TikTok, or we didn't. And she became part of our TikTok team to actually support Umuzi to become better at TikTok and reaching young people where they are. So it's these small things of this shared value economy that is really, really important to note. Young people don't come with nothing. They come with so much. And we just got to look in the right directions and see the world differently, I think. Thanks, Sheldon.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. And I suppose you jumped the gun there. You gave us your one insight. And I think that's important. Meet the youth where they are. Don't always assume that because you've got a website, people are going to, have access and know. So think of all ways that you can access and connect with the youth as well. And this goes for both corporates, NPOs, and obviously government as well. Nodidi, let me turn to you. We now turn to our closing comment. Andrew kicked us off there. Nodidi, 30 seconds. What would be your one takeaway or one bit of insight for either companies or NPOs, when we're talking youth employment? Oh, you're on mute. It took us that long to get to a you're on mute. So well done.
Oh my goodness, in 2025.
No worries.
Okay. So thanks, Sheldon. And I think from my side, Sheldon, it's a call to action, really. It's let's all invest in our youth and collaborate. Organizations need to work together to fight the plague of youth unemployment. And I believe that all efforts matter. Let's reach out to each other and partner, because collaboration is key. I mean, this big elephant that is youth unemployment, we need to eat it bit by bit, and we need to all plow in together, put all our resources together, and work together in terms of alleviating youth unemployment. So
Thanks
for me,
for that.
it's really collaboration and coming together.
Thanks for that, Nodidi. An extension of the message Sanlam, gave at our Business and Society conference last month. So thanks for that. Thabo, your one takeaway, insight, learning?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, I would challenge business to make solving youth unemployment part of business strategy, right? I would challenge executives, C-suite executives, whenever you have your board meetings, make sure that you keep an empty chair in that board meeting that represents the unemployed youth of that country, because they represent future customers, future suppliers, future business. When we speak about the economy not growing, it's not going to grow by itself. It's going to grow when we make strategic decisions that are in line with enabling the future of this country to take place. And that can only take place when we make youth employment part and parcel of our business strategies.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Thabo. Stephen, thank you for your question on the chat. I see Andrew has responded there. It's great to see the connections that we're making on the webinar. Sipesihle, we have to give you the final word. What's your one message to corporates, government, NPOs as a young person in South Africa today?
Thank you, Sheldon. Is that they should actually include the youth as partners and not just as beneficiaries, because they are the youth is very resourceful, and they will actually be able to contribute, and also and help in the building of their programs, because they're actually building if they're building programs for the youth, they should include the youth when building those programs. Thank you, Sheldon.
CP, I couldn't have said it better myself, and I think that's something that was severely lacking from the conversation up until now, and I think that's really important, and it's a very stark and important reminder in terms of designing programs, include the beneficiaries. We sometimes say it, but we don't always act on it as well. So I think, Sipesihle, thank you very much for that reminder there. Thank you very much to everyone who joined us this morning. Thank you for your interaction, your voting on the polls as well. We really, those were really, really great on that front as well. Thank you for joining us. As I said, we're going to share this write-up with all the registered delegates in the next week. We'll share the write-up as well as the full recording for those of you who maybe missed it or would like to share it with your networks or joined a bit later as well, or re-watch it. Thank you very much again to my panelists, Thabo, Nodidi, Andrew, Sipesihle, for sharing their insights, their wisdom, their knowledge, their learnings as well, and for their calls to action. I think they're really important. And let's hope that, when we discuss this topic again, we're discussing it from a point of more successes, from some of the statistics being lowered, and the youth employment rate looking a lot better as well. And we're speaking about economic opportunities and lives changed as well, again, because we certainly will have to talk about this again. It's not anything that's going away anytime soon. And hopefully we can talk about the learnings and as I said, the greater impact that has come through. So thank you very much for joining us today. The next webinar will be on the last Thursday of July, so next month. So look out for comms that will be going out on that in terms of the topic we'll be discussing next month. Thank you for joining us. Just a reminder, we have these webinars. We host them on the last Thursday of every month, looking at an important development topic. You can find out more on the Trialogue Knowledge Hub as well, not just about youth employment, but other responsible business and development topics as well there. And thank you. We really enjoyed having you with us today. See you next month.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.